I turn this button on and I say, you're aware you're being videotaped, correct?
I'm aware I'm being videotaped.
And you guys all consent to that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I think there's a rule that says you can debaters can't refuse to get videotaped.
Yeah, that's a rule. There's a law and then there's a rule. So it's really good to cover both bases.
Judge, just give me a nod when you're ready. Again, no rush or no worries or anything.
And I just don't want to have the timer run out for battery or my phone.
But I don't know where it is, so never mind. Ready? Opponents ready? Partner? I'd like to begin by extending a blanket of thanks to all of those here today, our judges for spending their weekend with us, our opponents for giving us what's going to be a lively debate, and my partner for standing by my side. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the resolution as was given to us today, our definitions, and then go into the framework of how I'm going to plan out my speech as I'm standing up here today. The resolution is that high school tournaments that offer parliamentary debate should generally allow parliamentary debaters to consult in prep time with anyone except their judges and the resolution writers. We would like to define high school tournament as a league or invitational speech or debate tournament at the high school level, and we would like to define anyone as any person or any material created by a person or people. Those are our only two definitions we would like to clear up. Everything else we'd like to define as contextual definitions from within the resolution. Just a second, let me get finished with my definitions. We would like to define today's debate as a policy debate because we are implementing a specific policy within the speech and debate world. Yes, I'll take the question.
Can you just explain that one definition again? What was that?
Which one?
The anyone.
Anyone is any person or any material created by a person or people. So specifically like a magazine like Time Magazine or the internet.
The internet? Okay.
Is that good? Any further explanation? No? Okay. So our plan, given that this is a policy debate, is that we should implement a standardized policy across the United States that allows for this consultation of any person or material created by a person or people. The enactment of this plan would be the National Speech and Debate Association. The time frame for the enactment of this plan would be the next academic school year that begins in 2015. And given that the funding for this would be minimal, given that the National Speech and Debate Association already debates rules on a basis and has a funding stream to announce those rules, there's no specific funding stream other than the normal ways and means that the National Speech and Debate Association has for getting such announcements out to the speech and debate community. So now that we have the definitions out of the way, I'm going to go over our on-case arguments, the advantages to our plan. The first contention that we have, first advantage, is that using research materials and the figures who surround us as sources of information provide for a more educational debate. The purpose of speech and debate is to provide for education, the education of the participants. The people that join speech and debate are doing so because they value sharing their ideas and debating the ideas that society holds true today, and they value learning differences of opinion. We're debating what is best for society, and when we're debating what is best for society and trying to educate ourselves, it is best to do so in a fact-based manner. And in order to provide for a truly educational experience, speech and debates the arguments within a parliamentary debate need to be based upon facts. Allowing for this consultation would allow for a far more factual experience because you're relying less on maybe assumptions or old information that you've committed to memory and more on recent information and things that you've gone over with those that are more experienced in the particular field of parliamentary debate. This allows for a far more educational and personally enriching experience. Therefore, our impact of this is the competitors are learning more about the world around them and learning truthful information around the world around them instead of possibly inaccurate or not true information. Our second contention is that debaters will center more on truth and reality rather than on speculation. What we can see with parliamentary debate, when you get into further along through a round, you stray further and further from your original contentions that you put forth. Contentions that were based maybe upon facts or information that you had previously. And you start to draw them out and look to the future impacts of those contentions that you're implementing with your plan text. What we see is that when we go to those future outstretched times, when we're implementing our plans, oftentimes we're relying on speculation of what might happen. Speculation that you came up with, you and your partner, during the prep time. And oftentimes this can be not necessarily speculation that's grounded in facts. Oftentimes, one of the jokes of parliamentary policy debate is that everything can lead to nuclear war. And what we see is that when we have this far-reaching speculation, it leads to a debate experience that is not grounded in truth and reality. What we need for upholding the values of debate, that educational value, is that we need a debate experience that focuses on reality rather than on claims that are not necessarily true or impacts that have really no likelihood of happening in a real world situation. But how does collaboration with people and things created by people stop this from happening? What we see is that by getting further facts to build up the foundation of those base plans, you understand the real world situations and what is going on. And if you have a greater understanding of the situations and of what's going on in the world and events that are going on in the world, you can have a greater ability to predict what is going to happen in the future. If you don't have this collaboration, it takes away your ability to have that predictability of what's going to happen with your impacts. Therefore, the impact of this argument is that the debate experience with our plan will center more on truth and reality. The third contention that we have that supports our plan is that allowing consultation fosters a sense of team spirit and unity while also maintaining the integrity of the debate, because one can't consult judges and writers of topics. So what we see is that with this consultation, we have to be careful because we want to ensure that the debate remains intact and that we have a fair form of debate. That is why within the resolution, we have the built-in part where it says you can't consult the writers or the judges. And that keeps the debate, keeps integrity within the debate. But debate also has another key focus, and that is fostering collaboration and team spirit, interaction with your peers. And by putting this plan into effect with the National Speech and Debate Association, we are further enabling teams to foster that sense of team spirit and collaboration. And this is a tool that our students need to learn, and it has real-world implications. In today's world where we are so interconnected with technology, social media, and using the technology in our jobs, we need to equip our young people with the ability to collaborate and work as a team. America can only go forward and function if we are working together. Working as one and being selfish is not the way that we can prosper. And by allowing this team spirit, this collaboration within the basic form of parliamentary debate, we are putting this spirit of collaboration and team spirit into the minds of our youth. And this is going to have better implications for the workforce because we're better equipping our students to go out and work together and create a better economy that is more interconnected and ready to function on not only a more national scale, but also on a more global scale, which, if you really want to draw this out, would lead to more unity on a global scale and more understanding of your peers. So what we can see, judges, with these three advantages, we are fostering a more educational debate, we are fostering debate that's more focused on reality, and we are instilling a collaboration in the minds of our youth. It is for these three main advantages that I urge your strongest act vote. Thank you.
I'm going to go 3 off and then on. Judge ready? Ready? Start time now. We negate today's resolution. High school tournaments that offer parliamentary debate should generally allow parliamentary debaters to consult in preparation time with anyone except the judges or resolution writers. And our stance is the following. We say that essentially debaters can consult with any materials except for coaches or other students from their team. This means that as we're saying that they can't consult with any people, but they can consult from sources such as internet or written materials. So essentially this is a counterplan saying that students will be able to use any materials that are non-human, except for their partners, of course, because that's going to be necessary. With that, let's go to the first advantage, which is that tagline elitism warrants. First, coach prep means the team with the best, most qualified coaching staff or the largest quantity of coaching staff is going to win. Essentially what this means is that when we have coach prep allowed, when you can consult with anybody, whoever you have best preparing you for the debate, that team is more likely to win the debate because sheer better argumentation. For example, look at the scenario. If you allow coach prep, then you're essentially pitting college or graduate level adults who are very experienced in judging in circuit debate, in college debate. They've been training for years and years against possibly novice high school students. Now, this is a major problem because this is very unfair for these students who are trying to experience parliamentary debate. This is fair and safe space for them to explore a debate as a whole. But when we're putting like college and graduate level educated people against high school debaters, this is clearly unfair. Next, coaches are extremely expensive. So schools with rich students and families are going to have the best prep materials. Now, coaches are pretty expensive. I know this for a fact. We hire coaches now and then for Cupertino, and they're pretty expensive. We have to split the money. So the teams that have permanent coaches coming with them to tournaments have to have a lot of money in order to afford this. They have to, their parents have to be funding this. So at this point, where we see that rich students are better benefiting from Parli and they're winning tournaments more, this is reinforcing the entire idea of elitism in America. Debate is currently a space of free expression in ideas, and that's why it's such an incredible opportunity and forum. But the key to real-world fairness comes from debate. This is a sphere where fairness starts. Debate is where we get fairness, when we get education, and from here we build ideas to implement in the real world. Now, if debate itself is unfair and it's elitist, then the real world is going to be even more elitist. The spillover effect from rounds that are unfair and elitist is going to reinforce elitism in the status quo, and that's the impact. The second contention is that of the big school domination. Essentially what this says is that if people have more students, then they're going to have better cases because of sheer quantity of preparation. Example, if you have 20 workers in a factory or 2 workers in a factory, the factory with 20 workers are going to produce a lot more. Now, the fact that some big schools have a lot more students means that they're going to be prepping a lot more. These students are going to be fact-checking, downloading statistics and files, just looking up sheer tons of evidence in order to pile on the other team just based on the number of students. I personally know this because during SCU2 we sent 20 debaters from Cupertino and we were able to get a ton of breaks because of sheer statistic piling. Now, the impacts are first reinforcement of current hierarchy of big school domination, and second, and more importantly, it prevents new teams from entering Parli. So say there's a new school and they want to start doing Parli or debate. Now they can't do that anymore because they're overshadowed by big schools who are always winning ballots. Nobody wants to come to Parli anymore. It's just unfair. Third contention is tagline student skills and education. Warrants, first of all, coach prep decreases the necessity for students to develop arguments themselves. So this impacts on critical thinking because the reason people do Parli right now is to actively think about arguments during prep. Like I do my research before a tournament, and during preparation we're all scrambling to come up with the right contentions, and this is when our minds are working, we're creating the best possible arguments. But when you allow coaches to prepare students, the students don't have to actively think about their contentions anymore. They're just reciting what coaches told them during preparation period, which means that there's no uniqueness to Parli. If coaches can just prep students, we might as well just be doing a PF or policy. Like, there's no point. In PF and policy, coaches are always prepping students. This is why rich schools in New York are always winning the policy tournaments. Like Stewie Masson High School has never been, but they've won the national tournament years and years in a row because they have money. We don't want to create Parli like this. We want to keep this unique idea of Parli being inclusive to everybody. Now let's go on to their case. So the first major problem on their case is that they're actors in National Speech and Debate Association. The NSDA has no jurisdiction over parliamentary debate. The tournament we're at right now is the tournament champions run by Point of Information, which is a national league for parliamentary debate. NSDA has specifically not recognized parliamentary debate as an event, meaning they've rejected repeated pleas from POI in order to include Parli as part of NSDA. At this point, they have no solvency on their case because they're saying NSDA is going to do something that is A, rejected, and B, has no jurisdiction over, which means it's like they have no case. This means automatic neg ballot just because of the actor. But even if you concede them the actor, let's go to their case. First, they talk about education, and you're going to have more education of materials. On this theory show, interpretation, I should have done this earlier, but yeah. Interpretation is that anyone should mean people. Their violation, they say anyone means materials, and the standards, first of all, is that of grounds, is that of dictionary definition. Like anyone specifically applies to people. It doesn't apply to materials. Like I don't call Time Magazine a person. I don't call the internet a person. Like people are coaches or staff who are prepping students. Whereas they're saying that Time Magazine is suddenly considered a person. Anyone means person. And the next is that of common knowledge. Like I would never go oh, Time Magazine, she looks nice. Like no, that's not how it works. In everyday life, we use the anyone to refer to people who are going to prep. And third is that of ground skew. They're pretty much saying that their case is turning everything by saying that if you don't vote aft, people can't use the internet, which is extremely abusive because anyone can apply to internet. This takes away all ground, and this essentially turns your entire case. This is a priori. You vote on education and fairness first. This is unfair to the negation team because it skews us out of our ground, and it's completely unpredictable, which means you have to vote negation on theory before everything else. And even if you don't buy that, first contention out of education, we already show you how education improves when students have to think critically. This is case turn. Number two, they say truth versus reality. Okay, first of all, the theory shell comes first because like the internet helps verify truth. Second, research helps verify truth. Coaches don't make students actively think. And the last one, consultation creates team spirit. This is completely overweighed by our case where some schools won't even be able to have teams because they're small or they're poor. At this point, you have to go negation. Thank you.
Judge Dirk? Okay. Order? I'm going to go off on. And without taking my time, first off, I just want to thank everyone for being here. I know this is a lively debate and a very interesting topic. But first, let's get right into it with their elitism contention. They talk about how rich schools are winning everything anyway, so you have to provide no central counter plan or any definition in a world that could be better than this. Yet essentially, by giving us this opportunity, we are showing the impact. We have given impacts to how our plan will actually make a difference in terms of all these rich schools winning. They say rich schools win, yet do nothing to show how their plan, how their idea, how their arguments are going to prevent this from happening, are going to change the system. If rich schools are winning, all they did is say that. They didn't say what they're going to do about it. Now, furthermore, they said that the best coaches will have better argumentation. And yes, however, it won't be the debating of these coaches that will win around. They seem to have throughout every single contention this preconceived notion that a round is won before a round. They think that if you're prepped the best, you're going to go into a round, you're going to immediately win. However, something I like to argue against is that it's an application of understanding and of knowledge of the students that comes into a round. A student can be prepared as much as he wants by a coach, yet when another team provides critical thinking of their own against a preset idea that a coach has given to his team, it's a team's ability and duty to counter-argue that. Therefore, any amount of preparation doesn't prepare anyone for party debate, and that's the entire point of parliamentary debate. You can be as prepped as you want, but the other team's ideas are going to come into conflict with your ideas. Understanding that the other team's ideas are going to come into conflict, you can't just recite everything. There is uniqueness in the fact that every single round has a unique set of rebuttals, and every single round has a unique set of affirmations. Therefore, understanding this, their entire three contentions fall apart when you see that no round is won before the round. Rich schools may have better coaches, but rich schools don't necessarily have the capability to go into a round and bribe the judges to win. Rich schools have to be able to apply things. They have to be able to effectively counter-argue the debate being made by a lesser school, apparently. And that goes further into the idea of elitism. Only a debater can convince a judge that he won. No coach is going to come in here and say, well, I gave this to my debaters, and because this was better, we won the round. No. Only a debater's prerogative is to win a round. Therefore, understanding that elitism falls through when you see that a debater has the duty to cross-examine and, I'm sorry, I'll take it a little bit later. A debater has a duty, essentially a moral obligation, to effectively analyze and construct an argument based on what the other team has said. Therefore, that leaves predictability, that leaves uniqueness, that leaves Parli intact and integral. Moving on to their big school domination. Again, it's irrelevant how the prep period is, because in the end, only debaters can convince judges to win. At Santa Clara tournament a few months ago, I didn't win because I prepped with my teammates. I won because my application of the knowledge that I learned was sufficient to allow me to deconstruct the opponent's arguments with my own knowledge. Understanding this, it doesn't matter how big a school is, because Parli debate isn't one school versus the other. It's two debaters versus two debaters. So you can have a big school versus a small school, and it doesn't matter how many smart people you have on either team, as long as two individuals are able to better deconstruct and better construct an argument as opposed to the other team. Therefore, that entire big school domination thing falls apart. Again, your example of how your own school managed to go through and around just because of stacking is irrelevant. I didn't go to that tournament, and I can't qualify this. Essentially, its primary source doesn't tell me. What if there were not a lot of competitors at that debate? What if there was only your school and maybe a couple others? That doesn't really qualify the fact that big school domination is irrelevant when no big schools win because they're big. They win because their debaters are able to be good debaters. Yes?
Isn't having a strong case really important to winning a round?
A strong case is the most important thing to winning a round, except we need to apply properly. You can have the strongest case you want, but if you don't understand the case you're talking about, it's irrelevant in the end. So this idea of big school domination, you can prep as much as you want. You can have a 3-hour prep period for Parli with 100 people. Yet when you go into that round, if you don't understand things and aren't able to critically apply the things that the other team is saying, you're not going to win. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have a big school. If anything, team prep, and they said that team prep won't allow new people to go in, and if anything, we like to turn this and show you how it links in to our team spirit. Now, if anything, team prep will convince new debaters to join by making it more inclusive and less daunting. A lot of people are scared that they only have to prepare by themselves, yet this new team sense of collaboration and sharing of knowledge will encourage others to join. It surely did to me, as the first invitation I went to was like this. Now, understanding this, we can see how we'll be an even more inclusive society now that people aren't so scared by the fact that their first debate isn't going to have to be by themselves. It's going to be a collective knowledge, but they will have to apply it by themselves. That they will come into debate knowing. Third, they said that students are just reciting there's no uniqueness. Again, this ties back into what I said about elitism, where uniqueness comes in the form of argumentation. If this was extemporaneous and people could prep with others, and obviously they can't, then there would be no uniqueness because it would be a simple recitation. If a judge told you exactly what to say in response to an extemp round, of course you could say that. But a judge can, a coach can tell you exactly what to say for your first constructed speeches, but that's the entire point of rebuttal and summary speeches at the end of parliamentary debate. Therefore, taking that into account, there's obviously uniqueness. If you come up here, say what your coach said for the first speech, then say what he said for rebuttal, then say what he said in your summary speech, or might not even be arguing the same debate and you immediately lost. Taking that into account, there's always uniqueness in Parli, and giving people an opportunity to learn more, which is our entire case is about, isn't going to take that away. In fact, it's going to expand that by letting new ideas come into the mix. They said that they talked about our enactment. The NSDA does not recognize it. However, the NSDA gives points. National Speech and Debate Association, formerly known as the National Forensics League, gives points for parliamentary debate. However, we like to show that this shows recognition. More and more is the NSDA willing, and there are more and more talks of them, including in the national tournament. Furthermore, they said the materials are not people. This cannot be right. Yet, however, they argue for that, and our counter argument to that, even if you do buy that it's not people, materials are products of people's imagination. It's the same thing as having someone talk to you. I'm sorry, I don't have time. It's the same thing as having someone talk to you, except you read it. No website, no magazine is computer generated. You're not going to be reading an article made by a computer. Every single one of these arguments is unique in the sense that it was written by a mind of yours and ours, and we take their ideas and critically apply them. Therefore, understanding that and the benefits we've given of more education, debates based on reality, and fostering team spirit, something that actually continuously totally dropped, I urge a strong vote in the affirmation. Thank you.
You have like 20 seconds to take my question.
Sure.
Isn't like my case a product of my imagination?
Your case is a product of my imagination, of your imagination. So, yes.
Okay, that's all.
Is everybody ready? I'm going to start by addressing the hierarchy, so you don't have to begin my time. So I strongly negate today's resolution. I'm going to start by defending the negation's point that it believes within parliamentary debate. My opponent's response is by saying that we claimed that rich schools were winning already. No, the entire point of what my partner was saying was that rich schools will be able to win more because of prep time. Throughout today's debate, they kept on saying that prep time doesn't matter. But in this speech, I have to prove to you exactly why it's significant that schools with more people people and more coaches will effectively have a lengthened prep time due to the affirmative policy. My partner brought up that, again, quantity, quality of coaches, better argumentation that would result. Because, again, you'd be effectively pitting the case writing skills of someone who went to college, perhaps in international relations, against a high school student. So the problem with this, as my partner said, and they never properly responded to, is that, sorry, I'm losing right now, is that cases are the fundamentals of this. We start with contentions. Argumentation continues from there, but the fact remains is that this preparation is huge. Because they said that conflict is inevitable, but you can also prep reputations. So my partner said, and I'll say again, fairness needs to start here in debate. We need to be on an even playing field, where it's me and my partner versus my opponents. By incorporating coaches and by incorporating their teams into that, we're destroying that. They never bother to address exactly how important it is that we have this forum we're on equal footing, where it doesn't matter if your coach is college educated, where it doesn't matter how many people are on your team, but it instead matters what you and you alone bring to the table. My opponent said that the round is not won before the round actually begins, but you want to have teams on equal footing, that is to say, with access to the internet and their partner. By allowing that equal footing, and that is the only way that we can guarantee that both teams have the same opportunities. We want to make sure that this isn't a playing field on which everybody has equal access, and that will not happen should someone be able to consult a college-educated judge, a college-educated coach, multiple coaches, or many people. They said only a debater can win, but again, they conceded that the case is where you start. And if you immediately are starting on a higher point due to extra prep time, or effectively extra prep time, then that is completely unfair. Yes?
Can coaches ever effectively prepare you for exactly what the other team is going to say during refuttals and rebuttals?
No. But coaches can't give you that preparation. Judges, consider this. If I came into this round and I was armed with 7 minutes worth of statistics and evidence to the philosophers, you would take that more seriously than if my opponent just had something that they came up with themselves. The words of others carry weight. And this extra prep time, as we'll go into now, is huge. My opponents were saying that prep time is irrelevant when it comes to actual rounds. But the whole point of Parli is that you get your 20 minutes of prep time, and that's it. But if I have multiple people working with me and I can ask them, hey, can you find this piece of evidence for me? Can you find that piece of evidence? All of a sudden, my reach is much larger. I now have more man hours with which to find evidence, which again stacks the deck against smaller teams. They also brought up that my partner's evidence was anecdotal and refusal, but that was it's just an illustration. You could counsel the same as hypothetical. They also said that it's irrelevant without good argumentation, but the problem is that argumentation can be fed to you by a coach. My opponents keep on minimizing the importance of prep. If my opponents had come in here without any prep at all, I guarantee they would have been worse prepared. And that's why it's called preparation time. It's your time in which you prepare. And by giving one team effectively more time or more quality time, this is completely unfair, yes.
Are you saying that we are arguing for prep time?
No, nobody would imply that. I'm saying that the affirmations policies would result in effective extended prep time for larger teams and teams that can afford to hire more coaches, which has unfortunate impacts. I'm going to look into that of student skills and education. They just continue to say that it comes down to what you're saying in round, but case writing, as I hope to underscore again and again, is the fundamentals. You start by arguing your case, and this extra prep time has huge impacts. With that, I'm going to move into their case. They brought up that the NSDA gives points and recognition. However, the NSDA does not implement rules, and as a result, they still have solvency. As a result, they also brought up my partners saying that materials aren't people. They said well, products are people. When my partner asked him a question, is our case a product of our imaginations? And they answered yes. So by this logic, basically everything in the case we write is a product of a person. Anyone should be restricted to any person or anybody because in every major dictionary, that's what it's defined as. And again, we're not prep. The reason why prep is important is because we come to this round with our 20 minutes of prep, and my opponent would effectively give teams with bigger teams and bigger coaches, yes.
If you have 20 pieces of evidence and you apply them absolutely incorrectly, are you going to win the debate?
No. coach who has gone to college and gotten a degree in the relevant fields, they can explain it to you. If your coach has a degree in economics, and in today's earlier debate on Japan, the Bank of Japan's policy, if your coach, understands that well, you are better prepared for that because you have a better understanding of quantitative easing, which is completely unfair to your opponents. And I also don't forget the theories they dropped. Again, this is so important that anyone be limited to this because otherwise this will lead to destruction of public interest as a whole. My partner responded to all of their points.
To the case room? No.
Which they responded to. My partner's reputation for the point of education was that education is better with critical thinking. And this critical thinking is more present when it's limited to you and your partner. Their second point was that we need to focus on reality. Again, we'll be able to focus on reality with internet prep. Thirdly, team spirit. My partner brought out, which I never refuted, that new teams will be barred, effectively destroying team spirit in that respect, because fighting schools will have the news crash because of this, which results in a net detriment for team spirit.
Or voting issues. Ready? Start time now. First voting issues of theory. The theory should be evaluated on competing interpretations. They have no counter-interpretation, which means you have to prefer the negation interpretation. Let's just go over the theory for a second. The theory was that anyone should mean people. They said that anyone means any materials. Okay, now first was that of ground abuse. Their entire and just the standard of ground abuse means that their entire case can essentially skews us out of our ground. We could never have predicted that Time magazine would be considered a person, so therefore students will be able to consider magazines or internets in their ideas, but they try to make it such that we can't use those. So that skews our advocacy right here. And the second thing, we talk about how they're ignoring the common definition. So not only was the ground skew like immediate abuse, ignoring common definition, dictionary definition is potential abuse, which should also be valued, meaning that if they don't listen to the common or logical definition in this round, there's no guarantee that they're going to do this in the next round. This is an a priori issue, and the fact is that this entire debate is about how to make debate better. So this means that theory is really, really important in this debate, because they can't tell you that they're going to make debate better until they themselves within this debate are making a fair debate. So fairness turns their entire case. So this is not only is theory usually a priori, it's especially a priori in this particular instance. So fairness turns their entire case and all their advantages. So this is going to be immediate neg ballot. If you don't buy that, go to the second voter issue, which is the actor solvency press. The actor solvency press was largely conceded in this round. What they said is the National Speech and Debate Association, or NSDA, is going to implement their policy, but that's impossible. The NSDA has no jurisdiction over parliamentary debate, and even if they had, their only response is that NSDA gives points right now, but these points are given to pretty much any kind of debate that's not NSDA sanctioned. And not only that, even if they give points, they can't change any of the rules that POI is implementing on the other. Our policy is implemented by point of information, which means we have more solvency coming. You can't vote for the affirmative because they have no actor solvency. Immediate neck win right there, because solvency is terminal defense in this round. Third voter issue is that of elitism and big school impacts. This has become a little bit of a mess. What they're saying is that coaches don't help students understand. But my partner clearly comes here and says that yes, they do. They explain ideas and concepts to students. So if there's a confusing resolution, like sometimes resolutions don't make sense to say novice debater, then the coach can come in and actually explain the resolution. What are the key terms? Which policies should they run? And even if they even if the coach just gives a bunch of stats that's not going to help understanding, that's not what coaches do. What coaches do are they help understand during the prep time. You have 20 minutes. You can first write the case in 5 minutes, spend the rest of the 15 minutes explaining students how to run this case. It's going to be significantly better than when the two debaters come up on their own, whereas a PhD in economics is coming up with something significantly more conceptual and advanced, and the other team is not going to have any response to what a PhD has, because they're just high school students. And the next thing talk about is how, like, if you don't have knowledge of a subject, then the case isn't going to make any difference. But first, the case is key. Like, for example, I can leverage my case over your case. So cases allow for my case allows me to turn to your case. That's a unique advantage here, because if the coaches prep your case, then that means I have better turns on the other team's case. In addition, the second part of this voting issue is the big school impacts. They say big school don't mean anything, essentially the same idea, because they're not going to increase understanding. But first of all, more statistics equal an easy win. I had a judge today who said the other team had more statistics, so they won. So having more statistics makes, especially in late debates, seems that debaters seem more appealing. You just cite a bunch of statistics and you're more likely to get the win. And smaller schools can't do this because you have two people trying to come up with contentions, case, and statistics at the same time. You're more likely to get statistics from the team with 20 people. And then only response they have is it builds team spirit. But first of all, the easy turn on this is that small schools not being able to join because of this hierarchy in parliamentary debate turns this building team spirit. If team spirit is like elitist and restricted to only big schools, there's no point having team spirit because there's essentially no competition. And the last, also extend the impacts on the importance of fairness and elitism, because the spillover effect from this round creates fairness in the real world. So you have to prefer the negative because we're criticizing elitism, not only in debate, but that spills over into the real world to challenge elitism, which is like really important to solving for problems in status quo. The last voting issue is that of the education impacts. This comes off our contention about students' skills in education, critical thinking. These go mostly conceded. What we're saying is that Parli is unique because it forces people to think of arguments during the 20 minutes. They actually have to come up with their own case, whereas in their world they only have to come up with refutations. Weigh the magnitude. In our world you have to come up with both case and refutation. In their world you only have to come up with case, which means that critical thinking is better than negative world. Overall, the spillover effect from our world easily solved for all the harms they outline, which means easy negative.
That's right. Alright, so I'm going to go over some key issues to today's debate. There are obviously some key areas of contention where each of our sides is providing arguments that need to be cleared up by us in order to prove that the affirmation is clearly proven that our plan is the best and that we clearly won today's debate. So the first major issue that has been a key area of debate within this session is that unfairness. The unfairness of our plan. Simply because our plan allows for big schools with the best coaching staffs and the most kids to give their debaters an unfair advantage. And they stated this again and again and again, that rich schools have an advantage, and that by incorporating coaches and teams, we're providing for unfairness. However, Judge, what we see is that you can have the best coaching staff in the world and the biggest amount of information available to you in the world, but when it comes down to it, when it comes down to this room right here, it's two debaters against two debaters. That is what you have to do. It's not about what you know, it's about how you apply what you know. That is what a debate is. That is what oratorical skill is, being able to convey your information to your audience in a way that they can understand and that is more persuasive than your partner. That comes with skill, and skills are not gained in a 20-minute prep session. So what we can see, Judge, is that we're not necessarily providing for unfairness simply because you have the best coaching staff and the best wealth of knowledge. It comes down to skill and the way you convey your information. And that leads into the second major thing that's been debated today is that how that information contributes to the debate today. Yes, that information is the basis of the debate, but debate wouldn't go forward if you didn't convey that information to the other person. If you weren't effective at communicating that information, there would be no debate. What we can see is that debate isn't about what you know, it's about how you argue what you know. That is something that's been seen especially in this tournament. What we can see is that with parliamentary debate and the advent of many of the techniques from policy into parliamentary debate, K theories, these things, theory shells, what we see is that with these critiques and these techniques, these aren't knowledge or information. These are ways of conveying your information. And oftentimes, when debates are being judged, it's over form, not content. The way you delivered, the way you used what the information you had to combat the other people's information. So what we can see is we're really not providing for an unfair advantage because it all comes down to skill and delivery, not necessarily what you know. Judge, we also see that one of the major contentions is the jurisdiction of the National Speech and Debate Association over implementing rules. But Judge, what we see is that the National Speech and Debate Association is largely the predominant speech and debate association within the United States. That's common knowledge. Does any other body within the United States have jurisdiction over all of parliamentary debate? Can we think of a better enactor to enact this plan than the largest and most predominant speech and debate association? So the NSDA is the default enactor simply because they are the most well known. POI does not have jurisdiction over all parliamentary debate. That's why we didn't choose POI. We chose the most predominant one. It was the best enactor of a plan and a policy debate. We also can see, Judge, that the other major thing today that they have brought up was our abuse with our original definition, that magazines and the internet don't constitute a person. However, Judge, we see that magazines, the internet, and etc. are info shared with individuals. Information is shared. Well, we can see that churches share information with individuals. Now, while the means may be different, the ends are the same. It's still information being shared. So that's why we made the distinction. We put anyone with anyone, meaning authors of articles on the web, authors of articles in magazines. It's anyone that's outside of the judges and the writers that is contributing information to the people that are debating. So, Judge, we can see with these refutations to their plan, and these disadvantages to their case that they have presented, that we have clearly won because our impacts are far more beneficial and have far more net benefits than those that were presented by the negation. We can see with our first intention that using research materials and those figures who surround us as sources of information provide for a more educational debate. That is what speech and debate is all about, educating our people and allowing them to increase their wealth of knowledge. And what better way to do that than allowing them access to a wider range of sources in which they can take that knowledge and discuss that knowledge and dissect that knowledge. By keeping debate the way it is, by arguing for the status quo, you are arguing for a form of debate that is not as educational as it could be. That is our impact, educating America's youth so that they can go out into the world and perform better and create a better world. Our second contention is that debates will center more on truth and reality than on speculation. We've all been through many parliamentary debate rounds today. You can see that oftentimes as a debate progresses and you're looking at the wide-ranging effects of your impacts, it's speculation. If you know real-world situations, that speculation can be far more on point. And our third contention is that allowing consultation fosters a sense of team spirit and unity. We're living in a far more connected world than we did 100 years ago, and it's going to become even more connected in the years to come. In order to prepare students for the necessity to collaborate in the workspace, we need to allow them to collaborate in their extracurricular activities. It is for these reasons, Judge, that I urge your strongest affirmative. Thank you.